Okay. Rick, just let us know when we're ready and we're live. You just give me a heads up. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. This is a regular meeting of the Montclair Zoning Board of Adjustment. Notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting a copy of the notice at the municipal building and publishing a copy of the notice in the newspaper. This is a remote meeting being broadcast live on TV 34 and held via WebEx. Information to access all remote meetings is published on the township website and available as part of all the published notice. So we'll start with the roll call. Okay. Mr. Harrison?
Here.
Mr. Fleischer? Oh. Go ahead, Mr. Fleischer.
Here.
Okay. Mr. McCullough?
Here.
Okay. Mr. Simon? Mr. Simon?
Oh, sorry. I'm here.
Okay. Ms. Harris?
Here.
Okay. Mr. Caulfield? Go ahead, Mr. Caulfield.
Here?
Okay. And Ms. Gilmer? Ms. Gilmer, I don't think we could hear you.
Here.
Oh, I can hear you now. Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Moore?
Present.
Okay, and Mr. Church? Go ahead, Mr. Church again.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Church.
Okay, so we don't have the minutes. We have the resolution for 60 South Fullerton. I have several changes. The first is on page 5, 3 lines from the bottom. After driveway, it should just read, and the detached garages, delete remains of.
Okay.
And then on page 6, number 5, the 3rd line from the bottom of number 5. I want to delete the word church as a simple thing since that's covered by house of worship, but I want to broaden that so it does, so space for houses of worship and other nonprofit activities. Because I don't want to make it sound like the township is managing houses of worship. On page 9, there's 2 changes. One is the very last line of number 10, after project, but with the proposed off-site parking, And then number 11, the next to last line of number 11, have it read, application involves 2 board approvals almost 70 years ago, and the current application almost 70 years later.
Oh, 2 instead of 1.
Yes, and then make approval plural, and then replace the second approval with the current application. And then on page 10, in the middle of number 13, the line that starts by existing street lighting, and then for the and add a small area, and then continuing at the northwest corner. And on page 12, condition 10, In the third line after the first 50, put daytime before parking permits. And each of the 50 parking permits do the same change. So there are two other instances of that. And then after the however, however, after the applicant has acquired the 50 daytime parking permits, and add the applicant is entitled to perform.
Oh, here. So after the word however, add 50 daytime parking permits?
Right. After the applicant has acquired 50 daytime parking permits. Okay, and then, Graham, you want to unmute all the board members, and do any other board members have any other changes to the resolution?
Yeah, hang on 1 second. Let me just unmute everybody. All board members, I'm going through and unmuting you so that you can participate on the resolution consideration. Mr. Church.
Does anyone else have changes to the resolution?
No.
Nope.
No.
Does someone want to move the resolution then?
Move approval of the resolution as corrected.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Graham, you want to call the roll then?
And who is the second? Sorry, I just wanted to confirm the second.
I second.
Mr. Moore. Okay, and we'll call the roll. Mr. Church. Sorry, Mr. Church. Hang on 1 second. Mr. Church.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Caulfield.
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Simon.
Yes.
Mr. McCullough.
Yes.
Mr. Fleischer.
Yes.
And Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Okay, and Graham, you want to announce just to be sure, the postponement of the Bellevue Theatre application?
Yes, this is to announce that the application for property at 268 Bellevue Avenue, the Bellevue Theatre Highgate Hall LLC has postponed. They will be proceeding at a future meeting of the board, and they will publish further notice. So there will be new notice published both in the paper and sent to all residents within 200 feet, announcing the date at which that meeting will be held. They have not yet advised when they will proceed.
The first application tonight is that of Algazada Dolgan, owner of property at 12 Washington Street. This is an application for a variance to construct an addition to an existing two-family dwelling on the subject property. The property is in the R2 two-family zone. The property is designated on the township tax maps as Lot 15, Block 3110. Variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-45-1 to permit a side yard setback for principal building of less than the required 10 feet. A variance is also requested from Montclair Code Section 347-45E to permit a maximum building coverage of greater than 25%. Graham, is the notice in order and are the taxes paid?
Yes, notice is in order and the taxes are paid on the property.
Graham, is Alan Trembulac here on behalf of the applicant?
No, just the applicant is here this evening. Michelle Dolian, are you on the line?
Yeah, okay, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you anymore, but we can hear you.
I lost my connection on my laptop and I had to switch to my cell phone. So I'm sorry you can't hear me. I mean, you can't see me, but I can see you.
Okay, and you can see the proceedings?
Yes, I can see the proceeding. Yes, and I
Okay.
have the copies of the proposed blueprints in front of me, so I can see everything.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Dolgan, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes, I do.
Just state your name and address, please.
Małgorzata Dołgan, 46 West Valley Brook Road, Long Valley, New Jersey, 07853.
Okay, so do you want to explain what you're proposing to do to the existing building?
Yes, the board members, Mr. Chairman, nice to see you again. In these circumstances now. This is an existing two-family house. The two-family, there's one apartment on the first floor, one apartment on the second floor. The condition of the house is just horrible. So I will have to demo it to the studs and pretty much, put the whole, new walls and new plumbing, new electric. So with doing all of that work, I would like to propose making the house a little bit more functional and adding 11 feet addition on the back. Making the setback on the left side, more workable setback. Right now, the setback on the left side is only 7 inches. I would like to push that setback more and make it 3.5 feet setback, 11 feet on the back. On the right-hand side, the setback right now is 9 feet 6 inches with the extension of the house, because the house goes on the angle kind of to the property line. The setback on the right-hand side would be 8 feet 4 inches. So we would need a variance for the left side, the right side, because we don't have the 10 feet. We are okay with the rear side setback. We are increasing it only by 11 feet. So we have plenty of room to have the 25% of the length of the depth of the lot. And we are just going a little bit over the allowed 25%. And I'm looking at the plans to get the accurate number now. This one, I don't know, Graham, I can't see it on my phone.
I'm going to show on the screen here now. The coverage proposed, as shown in the plan, is 28.3%.
Correct, and allowed one is 25%.
It's 25 is the maximum permitted, correct?
Right, and we are still on undersized lot. So that's what I'm asking the boards for, to grant the permission for those couple things.
Okay. Are there questions from members of the board? As I said before the meeting, I'm going to go through in the sequence. You're on the list of members. So, Mr. Fleischer, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't, okay. I think it definitely won't be more than 150, probably will wind up being less. No.
Mr. Moore, do you have any questions for Ms. Dolgan, the applicant?
Like all season.
Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
Mr. Simon?
No, no
Mr.
questions.
Simon, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Okay. Okay.
Not at
Mr.
this time,
Church?
no.
No questions?
Mr. Church, do you have any questions?
Mr. Church?
I have no questions.
No questions? Okay.
Okay. Mr. McCulloch, do you have any questions?
Mr. McCullough, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
Yes, just one. I am wondering if you considered making the building a little bit longer, as opposed to making the side yard setback variance a little bit worse. Instead of increasing this or decreasing the side yard setback to 8.4 feet, 4 feet, did you consider decreasing the rear yard setback here?
I did consider it, and I did discuss it with my architect. Right now, the whole width of the house on the back is only 16 feet and 8 inches. Making it smaller would not allow us to make it more narrow. I mean, we could probably flip that back bedroom, number 3, and make it longer, put the closets on the back, and make it more narrow right after the bathrooms, if that would help.
I'm just going to go to that page that you're referring to.
I'm
Yeah.
right on page A2 on the back there.
A2.
It's a very narrow. It's a very narrow building. That's the problem we are having. There's not much we can do with it.
Right. And is that driveway on the property, is it active? Are you expecting people to
Yes.
park there? And
It
is there a garage on the property?
There is no garage. There was a shed, like a metal, accessory building, but that's just falling apart. There is no garage. There is an existing driveway, and people right now do park on the back of the property. It's not paved, however, they park there.
And are you expecting to maintain that, or are you expecting people to park on the back of the property?
Absolutely, yes. It's one of the reasons why I like this property is because it has a driveway and because it's a long property where we can provide parking for both apartments. I know Washington Street has very big limitations on how long you can even park there during the day. So this way, tenants that live there can easily use the driveway and park on the back. Okay,
so I think my concern with kind of how narrow that driveway is becoming is getting people on in and out of the rear yard. And also there's no parking shown on the lot, which would be good to see. Just so we can have an understanding if you plan to pave the rear of the property, which portion is going to be paved and where that's going to be in relation to the property line.
Sure.
That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Caulfield, do you have any questions?
Just one. I would like to follow up on Ms. Harris. I would like to see an idea of where we're going to do with parking for the tenants.
Absolutely. We can definitely create 5 parking spaces on the back. We have 75 feet left after the 11 feet addition. So that's plenty of room to create the parking. And I'd be happy to make it part of the variance to propose that parking and design it with the proper setbacks for the parking and for the proper size for each parking space.
Okay, it says 60 feet from the new addition to the property line, but either or. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Gilmore, do you have any questions for the witness?
Yes. So you said that the front yard setback is going from 7 inches to 3.5 feet?
The left side setback.
Okay.
Right now it's 7 inches, and I will push the building in to create 3.5 feet.
Okay. And that's I'm assuming for a car to make way, or no, this is not the side of the driveway.
Correct. Yeah, Ms. Gilmer, I'm adding some notations for you here. This is the closest setback. Oops, sorry. I should change the color of it. The closest setback is on the east side of the property where I've made that small yellow mark. That's the existing 7-inch setback that Ms. Dolgan is referring to.
Okay.
Is on this side. And then for the new addition, she's proposing this 3.5 foot setback from this point to the new construction wall, which begins here.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, I have a number of questions. I guess the new proposed rear of the building, how does that relate to the rear of the church building next door?
Correct.
How does it go further back than the church or not as far back, or is
It goes exactly as far as the church goes. The church is right on the right-hand side, and the property line, the back property line of the church and the back property line of 12 Washington Street are all the same line.
right? But it's the building, the church building itself. How does that relate to where your addition is going to be located?
Right now, the church goes way past the existing building. I didn't measure how far. I don't have the answer to that question.
Okay, but it probably goes back at least as far as your addition will, is that correct?
I think it goes way further than that because that's a really, really big building. But I don't know how many feet past the new addition the church goes, how much further the church goes.
And the property next door that you own, how far back is that house going to go?
That house is actually the same line like that addition of 11 feet on the right-hand side.
Okay. The one thing to go back to the parking issue, Graham, given that they're proposing 6 bedrooms, what would be the parking requirement?
Off-street parking requirement for 1 and 2 family dwellings is cumulative. For 3-bedroom units, it's 2.5 spaces. So you add the 2 units together, so a total of 5 off-street parking spaces.
Okay, so I guess my concern on that is, there's enough room for conforming parking spaces, but without seeing a layout and without seeing a landscaping, we don't know whether the parking would be built to conform to the ordinance. Have you looked into that at all as to where the parking would be in relationship to the property lines and whether you'd be doing any landscaping?
Yes, we definitely did. And when I spoke with my engineer and my architect, I can fit 5 parking spaces with the proper setbacks on the back and still make the turn.
Because you also need from the side, there's setbacks from each of the property lines. And you need to have a drive aisle is, I guess, okay. Graham, you want to unmute all the board members, and are there any board members who have any further questions to ask?
I think the drive aisle is going to be where it is, right on the property. It's Joe Fleisch. I think the drive aisle is going to be right on the property line pretty much, which is where it is now. So if we can get a little buffer on the other side, that's probably as good as it's going to get. I don't think it's going to be easy to pull further off the right side of the plan and get in both a buffer and the proper length and then back out space. So I think it's going to pretty much be moving. The drive aisle is going to be essentially right along the fence the way the driveway is.
And also, if I may, the church also has a driveway on that side of the property. On churches, the church's driveway is on the left-hand side of church's property. So their driveway is also all the way along the property line, and that's how they access the back of the church. And there is no buffer there either. So that would be just 2 driveways divided by a fence that the church just built.
And just this is Graham Petto, the secretary for the board. Just for the benefit of the members, the installation of any extension of the driveway and installation of any parking area or parking spaces requires the issuance of a zoning permit in Montclair. So the applicant will have to come to the office and obtain a zoning permit with a plan showing the layout of the parking area and that it conforms to all required setbacks, both for the driveway and for the parking area.
Okay, I guess my concern is what Mr. Fleischer raised is it would appear that the parking area is going to need variances, that there just isn't enough room for the spaces, the drive aisle, and buffer to the property line. I mean, don't they need 4 feet?
4 feet from all property lines, yes.
They certainly can't get it on the drive side, on the driveway side.
So
the driveway side doesn't need the 4 feet, just the parking spaces need the 4 feet.
but
I think the drive aisle does as well, does it not? Mr. Petto, does the drive aisle not need?
Well, it depends on the relationship of how they lay out the parking area, if there's going to be a drive aisle or not. I think the issue is that as Ms. Dolgan stated, we don't have a layout configuration. I'm not an engineer to kind of lay those things out, but if they did something where we came back in here and did the parking like this, and they achieved the required setbacks here, here and here, I don't know. But that's something that's kind of a question. I understand the board's question on this, but I don't know if there are conforming options, and that's kind of a question.
I guess the question is, I'm assuming that the analysis they did for the parking was for head-in parking facing to the left or back-in parking to the left. If you've got the car, which is 15 or 16 or 17 feet, you only have 31 feet altogether. So you're already pretty much pushing the limit on even backing out of those spaces. So it seems to me that it's going to be tough when you have the 4. I think they're going to need, even if they put up fences or other things to block the light from car headlights and that kind of thing, they're going to need variances on both sides to accomplish the parking back there.
I mean, I agree. I think the solution, and I think I would be uncomfortable with our granting variances sight unseen and without notice. So I think we approve it, and if they cannot design the parking to conform to the ordinance, they would have to come back here. Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Okay.
So yeah, I just want to be clear. Did she agree to change the orientation of bedroom 3 to make it going into the backyard, which would further reduce the potential layout?
So just to clarify, Mr. Summing, your question is, would the applicant agree to extend bedroom 3 further out this way, an extension for cutting off and narrowing the addition? Is that what you're alluding to?
Correct. And by extending it into the back area, doesn't that even reduce further her options for the parking layout?
May I speak?
Yes.
I don't know.
Question for you.
Okay, I'd rather not extend it. I mean, if that's something that the board wants me to do, then I will, but I'd rather not and have more parking space. We have the existing driveway here. That's what it is. I'd rather not extend it even by a foot or two, just to have more conforming parking spaces.
Okay. Graham, I don't know how best to handle the public questions. Normally on an application like this, I do the questions and comments all together. But I mean,
yeah. So we'll do questions first, and then we can pause, and then we can do comments. So For all members of the public participating by phone or other means, I'm now going to unmute all lines for all members. If you do have a question on this application for 12 Washington Street, please, give a yell or say hey, and I'll respond, and we'll get your name and we'll start the questioning. Just a reminder, this is for questions only at this time. Separately, we'll have a period for comments. So just hold the line, everyone. I'm going to unmute everybody, and we'll let us know if you have a question. All lines are open. Let us know if you have a question. Okay, hearing none, so I'm going to just, would you like me to ask if there's any comments, Mr. Chair?
Do any members of the public have any comments, anything whatsoever you want to say about the application? This is your last chance to say anything about the application.
Okay. Just give me a moment. I'm going to just reset the lines. Hang on one second, everyone. Okay, Mr. Chair, you're unmuted, so if you'd like to begin, you can.
Ms. Dolgan, do you have anything further you wish to add before we discuss and vote on the application?
No, I'm just thinking that I wish I had that, parking design for the board to see how it's going to be laid out. My only question is, if I can maybe get approvals for the building, and just like Graham said, once we go to, once I design the parking, bring it over to zoning and have the zoning approved, and hopefully I don't have to have variances.
Okay, I think that's what we're thinking about, but that's what you would like us to do. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, we'll start discussion with Mr. Moore.
Right. I am generally in favor of the application. I don't foresee this being a hardship or a detriment with the community that it resides in. I would like to hear, though, what my colleagues have to say in regards to some conditions of this application. For example, possibly having to come back to show us a plan. So that's something that I'm thinking about, but I'm generally in favor of the application.
Hey, Mr. Simon.
I'm generally in favor of the application on the condition that the parking conditions can be met.
Okay, Mr. Church.
Mr. Church, let me just unmute you. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Church.
I would be in favor of it also, but I'd also like to see a diagram or a drawings of proposed parking. The application for the building is fine in my eyes at this point, but I wouldn't want to make final judgment until I saw how the parking was going to be laid out in the remaining footage in the back.
Mr. McCullough.
Hang on, Mr. McCullough. Go ahead, Mr. McCullough.
I'm also in favor of the proposal, consistent with the remarks of Mr. Simon.
Ms. Harris.
I think the 8.4 foot side yard setback is going to be problematic in terms of parking. I mean, right now in that area it's about 13'2", and if you're trying to get 5 cars in and out of that driveway, I think it's going to be an issue. And so I'm not in favor of that variance, but the others I would be in favor of.
Okay, Ms. Gilmer. Mr. Caulfield.
I'm in favor of the application.
Okay. Ms. Gilmer.
I'm also in favor and would like a graph or a chart or layout of what the proposed parking would be, and ask that the applicant come back and kind of show what resolution she'd have for that.
Okay, Mr. Fleischer?
I'm also in favor of the application. One of the comments that was made with regard to Ms. Harris's comment about the width and the length of that bedroom is that if she could cut it back, she could only cut it back beyond the bathrooms that are the two bathrooms that are there. And I'm not sure at the point where the two bathrooms are that the difference of cutting it back is more than 2 or 3 inches from there to the back of the house, which is only another 14 foot. So even if she could lengthen the bedroom a bit, I'm not certain that would really change the pinch point by more than 2 or 3 inches at most, because the bathrooms would still create the pinch point pretty much maybe 3 or 4 inches bigger, but certainly not more than that. It's certainly never going to get up to 9 foot by the bathrooms. So,
But if you could change the orientation of the bathrooms, I think you could achieve that.
well, then it's going to have to get a lot. Then it's going to have to get a lot bigger, because then you've got to pull the bathrooms in the what I'll call north-south on the plan direction, which will increase it to by another 4 foot or 5 foot just in the bathrooms.
Yep.
And prevent them from having a back-to-back bathroom arrangement as well. And so you're automatically adding 4 foot without adding anything. So you're probably adding another, my guess would be totally another 8 foot or so to the overall length of the building. That might or might not impact a parking space, but with regard to the parking spaces, I think it's going to be tight. I think they will need variances, but if they come up with a plan that doesn't require a variance, that's great. If they can figure out some type of parallel parking arrangement with a turnaround near the back, maybe that can be done. So it's possible they can do it, but I think it's going to be pretty tough. But basically, I'm in favor of the application. One of the concerns I have is we, of course, approved 10 Washington previously, and one of the conditions in 10 Washington is to align with the porch of 12 Washington. So I guess my question is, I'm assuming there's no change to the porch position in this proposal from the applicant. So I assume that's not changing from where it is now. If I'm wrong, I need to know that I'm wrong, but I assume. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The plans don't show any change to the porch area.
Okay, so then the conditions we set for 10 Washington would still apply, that it would not be able to go beyond what's now at 12. So with those concerns aside, I'm in favor of the application, and they will have to come back probably for parking variances. And so the question in my mind is, if they can do the parking real quickly and get back on the next meeting agenda, it might be a whole lot better, because they wouldn't have to renotice and reapply for variances. It could be an extension of a continuation of this hearing. But I leave that up to the applicant in her judgment as to what she wants to do. But I assume otherwise they have to renotice and everything else and pay fees again for the variances and parking if they don't simply postpone final approval of the application tonight. That's all I have to say.
Oh, let me ask. Ms. Dolgan, did you understand what Mr. Fleischer was saying?
He would like to bring us the parking proposal before the next board meeting as a continuation of this hearing.
Right. Basically, your choices are based on the discussion you've heard so far, which I am not going to dramatically change. The board is in favor of your application with some issues about the side yard on the western side, but we could vote and approve that and without granting you any parking variances. But if it turns out you need parking variances, which I think is very likely, you would need to submit a new application for the parking variances, pay the fees, and, go through, I think you have to renotice anyway, because that's a new variance.
Right, I'm sorry.
So it's, whether you want to leave here tonight with an approval and the distinct possibility I think the likelihood you'll have to come back for a variance on the parking, or whether you want to hold off on our acting tonight and come back once you've had a chance for them to look at the parking, for your engineer to look at the parking.
I would like to leave tonight with the approvals and come back with the parking proposal.
Okay. Okay. I'm also in favor of the application. I think this is a small lot. I think that justifies the variance relief that is being sought. On the eastern side of the property, she's increasing the existing setbacks significantly, even though it's not conforming. The increase in building coverage is nominally above what is allowed by the ordinance. I'm a little concerned with, and I don't have a solution to it, and so I'll probably just leave it there, is that following the line of the existing house, because it's not lined up parallel to the property line, it's now going to be more than a foot closer to the property line than where the entrance to the drive is, which is going to make it tight there. It's enough room for a car to fit, but it is going to be tight, which is going to mean the cars are going to have to pull a little further before they can turn to park. I think, I think we should, so end of the day, I'm in favor, subject to that we are not granted, that the parking conform to the ordinance, which has the effect, if it does not, we will see it back here for an application, which I think is highly likely given the dimensions of the rear property. Dimensions of the width of the property.
Mr. Chairman, quick question. If we grant the variance for the building, and then the parking is not in compliance, does everything have to go over again? Does she lose the variance for the building and has to do a full redesign?
No, I mean, no. She would have the right to do it, and then the only thing it's doing is putting us in an awkward position, because at that point, assuming she can demonstrate that a variance is necessary for the parking, it would just be a question of what variance we would want to give her. We could either give her a variance to decrease them to allow less than the 5 parking spaces, which be a de minimis exception to the residential site improvement standards, or we could give her a variance for the required distance to the property lines, or the required width of the drive aisle behind the parking spaces. But I don't think at that point we could say, go back to square one, or, undo the variance that we grant tonight for the addition to the 2-family dwelling.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Are we able, another variance option is to reduce the number of spaces required, which may help. Take it down to 4, 2 per unit, and that would give her a bit more freedom in potential layouts at the rear of the property. I understand in either case, and that would am I wrong that that would not be a variance and we simply agreed to, did that, I guess my question is, would that have been required notice to get it down to 4 spaces instead of 5?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Sullivan on the interrelationship with the residential site improvement standards in the Montclair ordinance.
Yeah, Graham, clearly they need at a minimum an exception from the site improvement standards. But Graham, I think in our ordinance, we also incorporate those standards. So I think it becomes a variance then.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
I'm just concerned about the path we're going down here, because if you make an approval conditioned upon providing a conforming parking layout, and they come back, they will also need relief from that condition in addition to any variances in their parking layout. I think the intention of the board here is there's going to be a parking layout that's going to be approvable, but we don't know what that is at this point and what relief is required. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're not going to know, Mr. Fleischer, we're not going to know whether the relief is going to be required from setbacks, from number of spaces, but in any event, if there is variance relief, they will have to notice.
That, I guess that part I understand. I guess my question is a little bit different. If they can't provide the parking in conformance, and if we make approval of the parking a condition for this approval, how does that work? I just need to understand. So in other words, we're approving something, but we don't know if the parking works, and we're not approving it subject to site plan approval.
Well, there's no site plan approval on a two-family home.
Correct.
But if the motion that carries makes the approval subject to providing a conforming parking arrangement, which is what I'm hearing, in the event that cannot be accomplished, which is what we anticipate, the applicant has to file a subsequent application, and the relief in that application will include relief from the condition of this approval, plus any variances that are required as part of the new layout.
Okay, but she can still go ahead and, in layman's terms, start this project, start building it, so we could end up with a situation where she's built the building, and then we reject the parking.
I don't think she gets to go forward and build the building.
Yeah, she doesn't. No.
Well, okay, I'm not so sure I heard it that way, but okay.
I think that, there's one thing, the board has to take action that's clear, and I think the requirement that it's subject to a conforming parking layout makes that clear, and then we don't know what the subsequent relief is, but we'll have to deal with it at that point. But look, is there a situation the board says, we're not going to approve that parking layout, we're not going to grant you the variances? Based on what I'm hearing, that seems like an unlikely event, but we have to look at it.
So I guess my point is, going back to the applicant, that getting the approval tonight of this building layout, even though there's a question from at least one of the board members on some aspect of the layout, but assuming it's approvable, she can't actually do anything with that. She can't do anything. And of course, she can do anything she wants to at her own risk, but she can't do anything because she has not yet gotten the approved parking.
No, she gets the satisfaction that the board has, at least at this instance, acted favorably on those yard and coverage variances that she sought.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for the explanation.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Would it be okay if I had the layout for the parking ready for the next meeting and, of course, give the proper notifications if we need the variance? Because I think we will be definitely able to fit 4 parking, 4 cars, 4 parking spaces. So we will need a variance for 1 parking space. I don't want to delay the whole process for months before I can get another board meeting. Would it be okay to just file it and bring it over as a continuation to the next board meeting next month?
Well, that's different than what you said. We thought what you wanted was approval on the variances you've requested thus far. You have the option to pick this application up and move it to the next hearing and notice for any relief you seek associated with the parking. But that's not what we understood you wanted. Are you changing what you're asking for?
No, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. No, that's exactly what I wanted.
Okay, so you want us to hold off acting tonight and carry the application to
For another month.
the July meeting?
Well, I was going to ask to get the approvals today and then have a meeting for the parking next month, if that's possible, as a separate variance.
In other words, can she get on the calendar for next month is the question.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Graham, where are we with next month's agenda?
We have a lot of things up in the air. Bellevue Theatre, another project on Bloomfield Avenue. We have the agenda is far from set at this point, so I have a number of applications that are kind of hanging out in the balance given the situation that's going on. So. Just to kind of go back to this, I mean, if Ms. Dolgan has, as we do with most applicants, you know, in these types of situations where a property owner constructs an addition or does something, and then subsequent to that, they do driveway or other parking area improvements, that process will require Ms. Dolgan to obtain a zoning permit from our office. If she comes in with a conforming plan that meets all the required setbacks, our department will issue, you know, an approved zoning permit to, you know, install the driveway extension and the off-street parking area. If she's unable to do that, we will deny that zoning permit application. That will refer her right back here, seeking variance relief for that proposed parking area. So, you know, I think in either case, she, you know, if she's unable to meet the parking configuration, she'll be coming back here with new notice with the new application, you know, to get that relief. But if she's able to find a conforming plan, that can be handled through a zoning permit. Which we do frequently in the office. I just wanted to relay that information to the board.
Okay, so Ms. Dolgan, you want us to vote on this tonight? I don't think I can guarantee you will be on the July agenda.
I understand. Yes, it's okay. If we can vote on it, if the board can vote on it tonight, that would be great. And like Graham said, maybe I can design, I mean, not me, but my engineer, the conforming plan, and then the zoning can approve it. And if not, then when the time comes, I will come back for the variance.
So any further discussion among board members? Someone, you know, so my suggested condition is we approve the variances as proposed, subject to the parking conforming to the ordinance.
Second.
I didn't move it. I was just stating it. Someone want to move a resolution?
Move to approve the variances with the condition that a conforming parking layout is achieved.
Second.
That's Mr. Simon with the motion and Mr. Fleischer with the second. Okay, so I'll call the roll. Okay, Mr. Church.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Caulfield.
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
No.
Mr. Simon.
Yes.
Mr. McCullough.
Yes.
Mr. Fleischer.
Yes.
And Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
The application is approved.
Thank you.
Okay. The next application is that of Derek and Sally Deisel, for property at 16 Bradford Avenue. Application for variance to construct an addition to an existing one-family dwelling. The property is in the R1 one-family zone district. The property is designated on the township tax maps as Lot 4 in Block 705. A variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-45B2 to permit a front yard setback for corner lots of less than the required average of the two nearest principal structures. Are taxes paid and is the notice in order?
Yes.
The applicants are here, Darcy and Sally Deisel.
Yes, we're here.
Hi.
Good evening.
Okay, would you both raise your right hands? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
I do.
State your names and addresses, please.
Sally Daisel, 145 North Mountain Avenue, Montclair.
Derek Daisel, 145 North Mountain Avenue, Montclair.
Thank you.
You want to explain what you're proposing to do to the property?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing up the plot plan, Graham. I think that's probably the most useful way to see it. We've purchased the house at 16 Bradford. As you can see, it's a corner lot on the corner of Bradford Avenue and Highland Avenue. There's an existing 2.5-story house there, which we are renovating. And we would like to put an addition on the back of that house, a 2-story addition that will include a kind of kitchen diner area on the first floor, and then like a master bedroom and bathroom on the second floor. As you can see from this plan, the existing house doesn't comply with current setback. So our architect has marked there in the red what the setbacks would be. What we would like to do is just simply extend out in line with the existing external wall on Highland Avenue side. The setback there is, it's about 19 feet. There's about another 12 feet from the plot line then to the road. And we've calculated that the setback should be, is it 26.46 based on the average of the two closest. We obviously submitted our plans, elevations, and as well as a steep slope survey confirming that the slope is less than 10%. I guess I'm obviously very happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Mr. Fleischer, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Mr. Simon, do you?
No questions.
Mr. Church, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McCulloch, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Caulfield, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Ms. Gilmore, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Okay, are there any members of the public who have, Graham, let me do both, any questions or any, unless.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Chairman, we had Mr. Blackburn who called in.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Mr. Blackburn, I'm going to unmute your line now. You'll be on the line to ask your question of the applicant. Hey, Mr. Blackburn, you're on the line.
I am. Can you hear me?
Mr. Blackburn, would you please give us your full name and address?
Robert Blackburn, 354 Upper Mountain Avenue.
Thank you.
Hey, if you have questions you want to ask?
I do, and they may show my ignorance. The first question is a general question. Is there a required or a specified ratio between the square footage of improvements, steps, parking, etc., and the total lot size in square feet?
Would you like me to answer that, Mr. Chairman? Or?
Well, if you can give the specific, there's a limit on the amount of building coverage that there can be on the lot, which I believe is 25%. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. 25% maximum building coverage. Exempt from that is uncovered stairs or walkways leading to access to a dwelling. The building coverage is applicable to decks and the building structure with 4 walls.
And they are not.
Does that include or exclude garages?
That excludes garages. The building coverage is limited to the principal structure only.
And my question as a follow-up to that is, does this fall within the code?
Yes, they are not requesting variance of the 25% limit.
I believe it's approximately 11% coverage, excluding the garage, but including the proposed addition. My maths may be a little off, but it's about that.
Okay. And the other question is, what arrangements are there for handling the drainage from the building? From the gutters.
So the existing property had no drainage.
I'm aware of that.
Yes, we have already started putting some drainage in. So the drainage there'll be gutters obviously all around the property. There will be drainage. There will then be drainage around the property that will eventually go out onto Highland Avenue. So we've already started some of that work, but obviously not at the back where it relates to the new part of the building, which obviously hasn't been started yet.
I'm not sure I follow. You're going to drain uphill?
No, the drainage comes from, will eventually end up at the front of the house, so at the Highland Avenue side. And then obviously the property slopes down, so the left side, as I'm looking at it, is higher than the right side. And the drainage kind of goes across our front yard and then out into Highland Avenue and down the hill.
Actually, I think that the drainage goes from Upper Mountain to Highland.
Yeah,
so it goes from Highland to Upper Mountain.
Yes, so the drainage that will be put in place.
Yes, thank you, Graham.
Runs all the way around the house. So the drainage plan from our builder will run around the back of the house, on the side of the house, on adjacent to the Upper Mountain side, Upper Mountain, and so it will run either side of the property and in the back of the property and drain in the front of Bradford Avenue.
Yeah, we'll meet at the front and then drain out to Bradford.
So the drainage for the building will pretty much come down onto the Upper Mountain side. Is that right?
I'm not totally sure if I'm understanding your question. The property itself obviously slopes down towards Upper Mountain. It currently has no provision for drainage, so I assume at the moment, yes, the water flows in that direction. We will put guttering in and dig in drainage pipes that tackle the water and then push it out onto Bradford Avenue and down Bradford Avenue. So I guess, am I making sense?
Okay, so let me see if I can make it clear for Mr. Blackburn. Does your property slope, besides sloping towards Upper Mountain, does it also slope towards Bradford Avenue?
Slope.
I can't bring that. Do you want? Yes. The property itself is very flat, north to south, but slopes downhill. Graham, do you want the steep slope survey? Maybe that will help. That has actually the
elevations.
I'm not doing a good job of explaining things.
There's actually the one that was in colour. So if you don't mind, there was a revised.
Yep, I have it here. Just give me 1 second.
So the current slope from the house towards the back of the garden.
Yeah, so that.
So the calculation from the from north to south of the rear of the yard is 0.02%. That's walking from the back of the house to the back of the garden, back to the back fence. So from the elevation that runs from Highland Avenue towards Upper Mountain, towards the Upper Mountain Avenue side is 72%, and that is a slight slope. That's the gradient. It's walking sloping towards that side. Apart from the drainage, we are also looking to So that's the slope towards that side.
I'm not sure I understood what you said. I can just tell you empirically, my backyard floods when there's heavy rain coming off of this property. And if there's additional improvement going on, that will probably only exacerbate the situation because there's less grass or dirt to absorb the moisture. So my question is there a way? I know a neighbor of mine who is adjacent to this property tied into the city plumbing line, the waste line. Have you given any thought to that? If you're thinking of draining onto Highland Avenue, that is a direction that is northwest and it is uphill, not downhill.
Yes, I apologise, Mr. Blackburn. That was me being very confusing. We are draining onto Bradford Avenue, not onto Highland Avenue.
So Bradford has the slope that will go down. So drains onto Bradford, so the water can flow down towards down Bradford.
Is there anything that states what the slope is for the property heading toward Bradford?
Towards Bradford, as we've explained, the plot itself is rather flat from north to south, but slopes a little from was it west from west to east. So
yeah, I think Mr. Blackburn is asking if what the slope is of this area.
I'm not sure if that was measured actually. I just having been on the property, it's all pretty even. I'd imagine it's
sloped down a bit that side, but it's not measured.
I had a photo. Let me see if that will help.
Slope, yeah. So if you on the actual,
yeah, there we go.
Let's see.
It slopes forward towards Bradford, but it wasn't measured.
This way.
Yeah, that dirt that you can see there is actually where the drainage has been put in. Yeah.
Bradford Avenue is in the direction of the arrow that's shown.
So the downspouts from the addition you're putting on, where will those be located?
Where will they go?
They will go. Well, there will be the gutters all around the house.
And then if it goes, there'll be another drainage that goes past the sunroom, and then joins. Oh, I'm pointing and you can't see. The other drainage is going to go past the sunroom, Derek. That's
on
correct.
The fence adjacent to Mr. Blackburn's property,
Yeah,
so the drainage will go down towards Bradford.
And then join the drainage that we've already put in at the front to drain onto Bradford.
So along this portion and then out to the street?
Correct.
Yes, all the way from the back of the house.
I have to say I don't know I don't know exactly where pipes are, but that's how we intend to drain it.
Yeah, but there will be gutters all the way around the house to make sure that the water drains out towards the front.
Okay, but once it goes down through the gutters
Mhm.
to the bottom, are they connecting to a pipe that's taking it
Yes.
out to Bradford Avenue?
Yes, everything will be
Correct.
connected to the underground
So,
drainage system.
so that line that Graham's drawn, I'm sure that's not exactly correct, but that's the general idea, yes.
What underground drainage system? You're putting that in? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And is that a ceramic tile or is that just the perforated plastic?
I'm
don't know.
not sure which one they will be using.
If the downspouts and the gutters are put along the southeast lines, walls, or roof edges, they're going to, I assume that they're going to be coming out onto your property that is going to flow down and hit my property and the caster's property.
Mr. Blackburn,
Are
are
you
you
gonna
able
tie
to
the-
see? Are you able to see the plot plan on the screen that's being shown? Are you watching also on TV 34?
No, I'm looking at the attachments that were submitted with the application.
Oh, because we've marked the plot plan to show, as the Dasels have discussed, they've identified the path at which the proposed drainage line will be installed. And it goes from the southeast corner of the proposed addition northeastward to Bradford Avenue. Is their proposed line to drain out towards Bradford Avenue.
But how does the water get to the line? That's my question. Are the leaders going to be tied into that line directly?
He's asking if the downspouts and leaders will connect directly into the drainage line.
That is the intention, yes.
Well, how can we be sure that that you're gonna do that? Are you representing that you will do that?
That we will do that drainage.
That you will tie the leaders from at least the eastern edge of the building into this line that you've designated, and that it is going to be graded so that it'll drain out onto Bradford.
I mean, that's our...
That's the intention.
Yes,
we don't want to have a flooded...
Can I ask a question?
Have the drainage down at the back. We also don't want to have lots of water at the back. So the intention is to get all the water out and drain it properly. So if we can discuss, we agree to that. Yes, now that's what we intend to do.
Mr. Blackburn, I think for you, I don't think it's coming from this property. I think it's coming from the driveway next door to this property. That's coming into the water's coming into.
It's coming from both. I've talked to Tyler.
Yeah, but there's a driveway that's coming from there that's picking it into yours. There's a lower point there. So, I mean, they have grass and stuff like that. That would probably withhold some of that. But the driveway is there.
Have you been there during a storm?
No, but I'll make a point to come on. I have a similar thing at my house. I know exactly what you're talking about. I have a similar thing.
I can tell you that the water comes down from your lot as well as the adjacent lot. The adjacent lot, at least in part, did tie their leaders into 2 6-inch pipes that were tied into the city waste line to take care of some of the water. But that was not done on this, and I did talk to the Mizrahis about it, and that was before this plan came up, where there's going to be even more improvement, which is going to increase the issue of water.
I guess
there are times when my yard gets so wet, I can't even use a lawnmower on it because the wheels will not grip. It's like a swamp.
May I make a comment? Can we, I assume we can make a condition that these leaders will tie into a pipe that will direct all the water to Bradford Avenue. All the water coming off the building will be directed to Bradford Avenue by an underground piping system that the leaders connect directly into. I think we can certainly make that a condition of any approval.
Yes,
Sounds
and
good to me.
we'd be very happy to agree to that.
I have no more questions.
Are there any other members of the public who have any questions?
So I'm going to unmute everyone to open the line. So all members participating in this evening's meeting, if you have questions regarding the current subject application at discussion, 16 Bradford Avenue, I'm going to unmute the lines and please chime in and we'll open your line for questioning. So please hold while I unmute everyone. Okay, all lines are open. Any members of the public with questions?
Okay, well, leave them open. Are there any members of the public?
Hang on. Mr. Brodock, do you have a question?
I was going to ask if this is also comment time.
I was just going to do that. Are there any members of the public who have comments on the application?
Yes.
Okay, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes, I do.
State your name and address, please.
Keith Brodock, 337 Highland Avenue. I'm the neighbor to the north. And my comment is I support the application. I appreciate what the Daisels have done with the house and the state of disrepair that it had been after the lightning struck. I think this is a small addition that really doesn't change too much. And to go back to the discussion about the roof leaders, the pipe to Bradford is already installed. And there is a catch basin about a house and a half down Bradford Avenue, so to the east. So I think that's already there and makes sense to have that as a condition of approval. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who have comments on the application?
Okay.
So, Mrs. Deitzel, do you have anything further you wish to say before we discuss and vote on the application?
No, I don't think so. We're just pretty much looking forward to getting this built and living in it as a family if you will approve. So thank you very much for considering our application.
Okay, we'll start discussion with Mr. Simon.
I'm generally in favor of the application. It seems that the addition isn't obtrusive to the neighborhood, and they did take the flooding issue into consideration with their planning, so I am in favor.
Mr. Church?
I'm in favor of the application with the proviso that the leaders on the building do tie into a drain pipe underground that will transfer water from that building out to Bradford Avenue. With that proviso, I would be in favor of this application. I think it's an improvement to a building that is an attractive building for that area.
Mr. McCulloch?
I'm also supportive of the second.
Ms. Harris?
I'm in favor of this application. The proposed addition is in line with the existing building, so it's not making the side yard setback any worse than it is currently. So,
Okay, Mr. Kaufman?
I'm in favor as well.
Ms. Gilmer?
I'm in favor of this application.
Mr. Fleischer?
I'm also in favor of the application with the conditions suggested by Mr. Church.
And Mr. Moore?
I'm in favor of the application with the conditions provided by our colleague.
I'm also in favor of the application. the addition is no closer to Island Avenue than the existing house, which is much larger than the addition. So it's not going to have a substantial detriment to the public good or a substantial impairment to the zone plan. I'd also be in favor of the condition. I would want to add to it that the drainage system be reviewed by the board's engineer to ensure that it's complying with the condition so that no additional runoff will be directed onto the neighboring properties to the east. Any further discussion? And if not, would someone like to move the application?
Move approval of the application with the conditions as stated by the chair.
Second.
Okay. We'll call the roll. Mr. Church?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Caulfield?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Fleischer?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Okay, the application is approved.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next application is that of Claire and Stuart Altschuler for property at 8 North Brookwood Road. This is an application for a variance to locate a generator unit, an accessory structure in the front yard. The property is in the R11 family zone and is designated on the township tax maps as Lot 7 in Block 2002. A variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-46C to permit an accessory structure to be located between the main building and the curb of the street on which the building fronts. Are taxes paid, and is the notice in order?
Yes.
Mr. Altschuler, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
Stuart Altschuler, 8 North Brookwood Drive, Montclair, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Okay, you want to explain why you're locating the generator where you're proposing it?
Yes, thank you. My wife and I are asking for a variance to install a generator on the west side of our house. Our understanding is that a variance is necessary because we're on a corner property bounded by two roads, North Brookwood at the front and West Brookwood on the side. And although the generator will be placed on the west side of the house, not at the front of the house, the position is considered a front yard because it faces West Brookwood. Our contractor has told us that building code provisions require placing the generator at least 5 feet from any window in the house. And that means the only place we can put the generator is on the west side of our house, facing West Brookwood. We can't put the generator on the other side of the house, on the east side of the house, because there's not enough space between our house and our neighbor's property on that side. There are more windows on the east side of our house than on the west side, and there's not enough room to place the generator 5 feet away from every one of those windows. We propose to put the generator 18 inches from the west wall of our house. The generator itself is 24 inches deep from front to back. So as a result, putting those two measurements together, 18 inches plus 24 inches, the front of the generator will extend no more than 42 inches away from the wall of our house. And that leaves about 25 feet and maybe a few feet more between the generator and West Brookwood. And in that space between the house and the road, there's a great deal of vegetation, trees and bushes, which will effectively screen the generator from anyone driving by or walking by on West Brookwood. And I should mention that West Brookwood has no sidewalks, it's just the road. There's not a lot of pedestrian traffic on that road. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions? Mr. Fleischer, do you have any questions?
I do have a question.
I do not.
I do have a question. I'm looking at the site plan, which is up on the screen, and I see 2 AC units are identified there, but I didn't see those AC units in the photographs at all. Are they not there?
They are there, yes. I think they are hidden by bushes. I'd have to go back and check the photos, but I believe that's right.
Can you show me where they are? Because I didn't see it on the plans.
Would you like me to point them out on the photos?
Yeah, if you can. Because I guess missed them.
Sure.
So, yeah, just let me know which photo. I have the photos that were submitted as part of the application here. I can show them on the screen.
Can you rotate them?
I can, yep.
There it is.
So I think this is it. It's page 18.
Right. And
So those are the air conditioning units, are little boxes?
yes, that's right.
Right.
And how much room is there between the air conditioners?
I have not measured it. I'm guessing maybe 6 to 8 feet. I'm just guessing.
I mean, at one level, one of the problems is it's a fairly narrow yard, so that anything you put there on the times when you test the generator, do other things to make sure it's working properly, it will probably have a negative impact on your neighbors. And I was not aware of the requirement that it had to be the distance away you stated for from any windows. So,
Well, that is why we're not proposing to put the generator on this side of the house. We're proposing to put it on the opposite side.
and that's because of the windows or because of the closeness to the neighbor?
I think it's because of both. Our contractor has explained that there's just not enough room to put the generator 5 feet away from every window on the side that you are now viewing and stay within the property line. And so he has told us that the only feasible location, the only possible location, is on the other side of the house. And he was quite certain about that. I should say also that he is I believe, an authorized dealer or distributor of the Generac the Generac generator that we're proposing to install. And he was quite clear about the building code requirements and the manufacturer requirements for that generator.
Okay, one last question. There's insufficient room between the garage and that south side of the house?
That's right. There are two windows there.
Okay, so it's windows again. Okay.
Right. There are two windows on that south side of the house, and there's just no room to put a generator at that point, 5 feet away from each window.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Simon, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. What's on the screen says West Brookfield Drive, but in the application on the maps it says East. Which is the correct?
West.
So I can answer that question since it's my error in my memo. It's not technically an error. It is West Brookwood Drive. The East Brookwood Drive is an improperly labeled relic that has made its way all the way up to the state of New Jersey's road database. So I'm trying to have it corrected, thanks to Mr. Altschuler. but it is in fact West Brookwood Drive as shown here on the survey.
Okay, all right, that clears that up. Thank you. The other question is, has any sound testing been done for the proposed location of the generator?
I'm sorry, what kind of testing?
Any sound decibels? decibel levels?
No. What we've been told is that the generator will only switch on in the event of a power outage and will switch off automatically once the power is restored. So this is strictly an emergency generator that will operate only when PSE&G, the PSE&G system fails.
Right. Okay. And in terms of the vegetation that's there, would you have to clear any of that out to do the installation? And if so, will it be replaced?
We may have to remove one tree that is standing right up against the west side of our house. And if that occurs, then we're planning to plant trees or bushes in addition to what we already have, and which I think you can see in the photographs, so that the generator would be effectively screened from the road.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Church, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McCulloch, do you have any questions?
No questions. I did, but they've been answered.
Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Caulfield, do you have any questions?
No question.
And Ms. Gilmore, do you have any questions?
I was just wondering about the visibility. You said that you guys were going to be removing a tree and replacing more shrubbery, or do you have any plans to help reduce visibility on that side of for the generator?
Well, the tree that may have to be moved, and I'm not sure about this, but if any tree is removed, it's one tree, which is not very big to begin with, and is right up against the house. So the tree, even if we put the generator to one side or the other of the tree, it would do nothing to shield the generator from the view of the road. And if we find, once the generator is in place, that there is a gap of some kind with the existing trees, with the existing bushes, we would fill that gap. We would want to do that no matter what.
Right. So that's in an effort to help conceal the generator?
Yes, just to maintain what we have now, which is really a completely garden-like and wooded area between our house and West Brookwood.
Okay, and also for noise, I just was wondering if you considered possibly enclosing it or something. I don't know if they make things like that, or something that could, also help with visibility and then control the noise for the neighbors.
I will tell you that I've been told this is a very quiet generator, and as I said, it will only be operational in the event of a power outage. And by the way, as long as we're looking at this particular photograph that Graham has put up, the tree that would be removed is not the tree that you see on the right side of this photograph. That is a large tree, and that is farther away from the house than the one that I'm talking about. The one that I think may have to be removed is a much smaller tree. It's just to the left of the large tree that you see in this photograph on the right side. It's just to the left of that tree, and it's right up against the house. Yes, that is roughly where that tree is. And it's a small tree. It's also a tree that's been badly damaged in the storm of a year or two ago. A large part of it, of the top, was broken off.
Graham, if you go to the first photo and what they submitted, it shows that tree clearly and how it was, the top part was damaged.
It's the first photo in that submission set.
The very
last.
first one.
I think it's the last. Something like that.
Yes.
Well, it's okay.
This
Yeah,
one?
no, it is the last one in their submission.
Oh, the last one. Okay. This one.
There it
Yes.
is. That's it. That's exactly right. And you can see the top is broken off. That happened a year or two ago. And
So would it be your
I'm sorry, go ahead.
understanding that the generator would be visible from the road?
Our plan is to make it invisible.
Okay. Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Okay, just while you have that picture up, I guess I'm trying to understand the location, because it would seem to be you're putting it right where that tree is located, and I don't have a problem with you removing that tree, but to keep the 5 feet from the window that's, to the right of the chimney, you would seem to have to be putting it pretty much where that tree is, or certainly affecting its root zone significantly.
That's right.
So, and just as this photo shows, when you park your car kind of straight on the road, I had to, a clear shot of where the generator is, but as long as you're going to screen it. Graham, if you can, while I'm asking the questions about the noise, put up the survey again.
Yep.
I guess I'm concerned on the noise because in what you submitted to us, it says operating at normal load, it's at 67 decibels, which would exceed even daytime limits for sound. And then in its test mode, it said 55 decibels, and the larger one is at 57 decibels, which is for daytime, but would not be okay for nighttime sound. So I guess the first question I want to ask, you're required to test generators periodically. Would you be okay with the condition that it only be tested during daytime hours?
Yes, that would be fine. I should mention that if you can see from one of the photographs, the house opposite the west side of our house is, I'd say, 100 feet. Again, I'm just roughly estimating, but they're about 100 feet from the west side of our house. Graham is, I think.
You know which page it is of the photos?
If you, Graham, I think it's beyond this.
It's the photo identified as
yes, that's it.
South.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. If you, that's exactly right. And you are now looking at the house that's directly opposite the west side of our house, and you can get a rough sense of how far away they are. And I've actually talked to our neighbors, and I didn't just serve them with notice. I spoke to them about this plan, and they informed me that they had no problem with our placing the generator there. In any event, my understanding is that this generator is the quietest that is available. And I don't think that frequent testing is necessary. And so your question was whether the test could be performed during the daytime rather than at night?
Correct.
I think it could be arranged that it would only be tested then, and I don't think that would be a problem at all.
Graham, can you go back to the plan?
Yes.
Okay. I guess the question, is there a reason at the exact, I guess it would be the southeast corner, at the corner itself, rather than along the wall, that you couldn't place it there?
The southeast corner.
So you're talking about, let me just do a little marking. You're talking about this corner, Mr. Chairman.
Right, but, literally at the corner.
No, because there is a window, there are actually two windows right at that corner, one on the east side and one on the south side of the house. And I walked the entire property with our contractor. He looked at all of the angles, all sides, all angles, and came to the conclusion that the only place where the generator could be installed would be on the west side, as indicated.
And your contractor is someone who sells this particular type of generator?
I believe that's right, yes.
Did you explore any other types of generators?
No, he recommended this one highly. I have heard of this brand of generator before. My understanding is, I'm not an expert in this area, but my understanding is that this is state of the art for this kind of generator.
Any other questions from members of the board?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Jerry Simon has a question, I think. Did you have a question, Jerry?
Yeah, just the type of generator, was it natural gas or was it fuel gas?
Natural gas. It would be hooked up to the gas system in our house.
Right. Okay.
So no additional fuel tank or anything of that sort would be necessary.
In terms of that 5 foot from any window, that applies to both styles, or was it just for the fuel?
I'm sorry.
The 5 foot requirement from any open window, does that apply to the natural gas generator as well?
No, the generator would be tied into our internal gas access.
No, I understand that. It was just probably just more a question for me on the actual requirement. It's okay.
My understanding is that what you see in the application, there's a picture of the generator in the specifications. That is the only piece of equipment that would be installed. What happens on the inside is that is tied into our electrical system within the house, and it is tied into the gas that we have inside the house. So that when the power goes out, the gas can power the generator, which will switch on automatically.
I can just help clarify, Mr. Altschuler. I think Mr. Simon's question was, is the 5 foot provision from any window applicable regardless of fuel type of the generator?
I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer. I do know from talking at length with our contractor that this type of generator, the one we're proposing to install, is subject to that 5 foot requirement.
Just let me follow up on the testing, just so you understand. And what you what was included in the application, the specifications, it says, and it's programmable. It says operates engine to prevent oil seal drying and damage between power outages by running the generator for 5 minutes every other week. So it's every 2 weeks, or it's going to be tested for 5 minutes, which is not long, but that's why I want to make sure that's happening when people are awake and not when they're sleeping.
That is my understanding. We can program it to meet that requirement.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Are there any members of the public who have either questions or testimony? Graham, if you can unmute everybody.
Yep. So members of the public participating, I'm going to unmute all lines. If you have any questions or comments, please speak up and we'll be sure to get to you. Okay, all lines are open.
Okay. So last chance if you want to say anything about the application other than Mr. Altschuler. Okay, want to close the lines? Yep. Mr. Altschuler, do you have anything further you want to add before we discuss and vote on the application?
Mr. Altschuler, do you have any final comments? The chair's asking.
I'm sorry. No, I have no more comments. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, we'll start discussion with Mr. Church.
I would vote in favor of this. I've seen these in operation when we've had power outages. Some of my neighbors have this apparatus in their properties. And I don't hear it being tested. And it's not, I'm on a small street, and it doesn't really affect me or my neighbors at all. So I would be in favor of the application as a great safety feature in the event of power outages.
Mr. McCulloch.
In favor of the
Ms. Harris.
I'm in favor of the application.
And Mr. Caulfield.
I'm in favor of the application.
Ms. Gilmer.
I'm in favor of the application.
Mr. Fleischer.
I'm in favor of the application with the condition that there be dense plantings to the west of the unit, which will serve to both visually shield it and absorb some of the sound coming off of it. So with a condition for dense plantings to shield it from view, I think you'll also get some sound reduction as well. So with that condition, I'd be in favor of the application.
Mr. Moore.
I'm in favor of the application with the condition that the homeowner runs the test of the generator during the daytime.
And Mr. Simon?
I'm in favor.
I'm also in favor. I think the applicant has demonstrated that due to the location of the house, the location of the garage, the windows on the house, that this is the only location where you can put the generator. I don't think it'll cause a substantial detriment to the public good or a substantial impairment to the zone plan. I should have the two conditions that have been discussed. One, that there be sufficient vegetation planted to screen the visibility of the generator from the street, and two, that testing occur just so we're defining daytime to deal with this time of year when the sun gets up before I do, that any testing occur between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Any further discussion? And if not, does someone want to make a motion?
I would. I'm concerned about the 6 p.m. It doesn't run that long, so there's no reason why it can't be performed middle of the day, because 6 p.m. is well after dark in the wintertime, certainly. So.
Okay.
by definition. I think if it's performed sometime between 10 and 2 or something like that, that should give him plenty of flexibility.
I agree.
Okay. Any other discussion? Someone want to make a motion?
Move approval of the application with the conditions as stated.
Or a second?
I second.
Okay, so
Great.
Mr. Fleischer with the motion, Mr. Moore with the second. We'll call the roll. Mr. Church?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Caulfield?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Simon? Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Fleischer?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Okay, the application is approved.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
The
you.
next application is that of Thomas Hickey for
I
property.
have to excuse myself in this case, sorry.
Oh, Mr. Caulfield, yes, is recused on this one.
Thank you guys. Good day.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
The next application is that of Thomas Hickey, property for property at 365 North Fullerton Avenue. This is an application, a variance to construct a second floor addition to the existing one-family dwelling on the property. The property is in the R1 one-family zone. Property is designated on the township tax maps as Lot 14 in Block 3410. A variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-45B2 to permit a front yard setback for corner lots of less than the required average of the two nearest principal structures. Are taxes paid, and is the notice in order?
Yes.
Mr. Hickey, will you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address.
365 North Fullerton Avenue, Montclair, New Jersey.
Thank you.
There you go. Explain the addition you're proposing.
So currently there's a single-story structure off the side of my house on the corner of North Fullerton and Gordonhurst. And my goal is to add on to the existing structure with a second story and actually make it even better and more consistent with the colonial style than what is currently existing.
Okay. Are there questions from members of the board?
I have a question.
Okay. Mr. Fleischer.
Just, my question is, looking at the house relative to the house immediately to your east, this is going to be coming out pretty well in front of that house, which now views over your one-story extension there. And I was wondering if you had had any discussions with that neighbor.
The neighbor hasn't voiced any concerns about the fact that the second story will be in front of their porch. They're not overlooking it's pretty well vegetated. There's a hedge line that divides our two properties. So there really isn't a view towards or into each other's land or property. And so we're not really disrupting a view because the view is more towards the north.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Mr. Simon, do you have any questions?
No question. Oh, just the property is the new addition is going to line up exactly with what's the existing there, correct?
Correct. I'm just extending the existing walls up.
And in the new addition, is it just a bathroom?
Yes, and a closet.
Mr. Church, do you have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McCullough, do you have any questions?
I'd like to hear once again, what was the rationale for doing this project? It wasn't clear.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Could you repeat that?
I couldn't hear that.
I'm sorry. What's the rationale for doing this project? That was not clear to me.
Rationale was the need for a larger closet for the master bedroom and also a bathroom for the master bedroom. Seemed like an easy solution to just extend an existing structure and then which abutted the current master bedroom, and so that we could have a clear circulation path from the master bedroom without wasting too much space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
No, no questions.
Ms. Gilmore, do you have any questions?
No, no questions.
Okay, just to be clear, there's currently a large evergreen at the corner of the house that doesn't show up in your sketch of the addition. Is it correct to assume that's being removed?
Actually, we'd like to save the evergreen if possible. The purpose of the sketch was to exhibit the new addition and how it would appear once it's built. Ideally, we save the evergreen, but it might be a challenge.
Okay. I have no further questions. Any board members have any additional questions? Okay. Are there any members of the public who have questions or comments or anything you want to say about the application?
Okay, so all members of the public and everybody participating in unmute all lines. If you have a question, please speak up and let us know, and we'll get your question asked.
And this is questions or comments, correct?
And comments. Mm-hmm. Okay, all lines are open.
We have at least one neighbor in the audience. Last chance, if you have anything you want to say or ask questions about the application, speak up now. Okay. Mr. Hickey, do you have anything further you wish to add before we discuss and vote on the application?
I don't have any more to add. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll start discussion with Mr. McCullough.
I'm in agreement with the
Ms. Harris?
I'm in favor of the application.
Ms. Gilmore?
I'm in favor of the application.
Mr. Fleischer?
I'm in favor of the application.
Mr. Moore?
I'm in favor of the application.
Mr. Simon?
I'm in favor.
Mr. Church?
I'm in favor, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm also in favor. I think, as we've allowed in a number of instances, people putting a second floor addition over an existing first floor where there's no further encroachment. I don't think this will cause a substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment to the zone plan. Someone want to make a motion?
Move approval of the application as submitted.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Fleischer, a second by Mr. Church. We'll call the roll. Mr. Church?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Caulfield is excused. Sorry, Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmer? Yes. Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Fleischer?
Yes.
And Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Okay, the application is approved.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Graham, we have anything else we need to do?
I don't think so at this time. Thank you all for participating.
Someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
So second? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? See you in June.
Okay, we'll see you next month. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.